The lecture hall of the Helior Prime Academy was carved from pale alloy and crystal, a vast amphitheater designed to amplify intellect rather than sound. Rows of tiered seats curved inward toward a single blackboard that floated a meter above the floor, its surface shifting with equations too complex for most species to write by hand. Here, the brightest minds of a dozen star systems gathered to learn the laws that governed reality itself. Among them sat Elias Ward. He did not look remarkable. His posture was relaxed to the point of carelessness, long legs stretched beneath a desk designed for creatures with 3 knees and no patience for comfort. While others adjusted neural crests, recalibrated ocular lenses, or synced thought cores to the Academy's data lattice, Elias simply watched. His dark eyes traced patterns not on the board, but on the room itself, how the students leaned forward when challenged, how they stiffened when authority entered. Authority arrived on 6 segmented legs. Instructor Croth entered without ceremony, his chitinous form clicking softly against the floor. He was tall even by his species standards, his upper torso narrow and rigid, his mandibles etched with ceremonial markings denoting intellectual rank. Croth had taught at Helior Prime for 3 centuries. In that time, he had failed exactly 1 student. He intended to make it 2. His multifaceted eyes swept the hall, pausing, just a fraction longer, on the lone human. Croth disliked anomalies. Humans were anomalies given flesh. They had been admitted to the Academy only recently, after a series of uncomfortable demonstrations that suggested their cognitive limits had been underestimated. Even so, Croth found the notion offensive. Intelligence, in his view, followed order. Logic refined itself through discipline, tradition, and strict adherence to proven frameworks. Humanity possessed none of these in sufficient purity. Elias felt the gaze and met it calmly. Today, Croth announced, his voice resonating through the hall without amplification, we will examine predictive convergence in unstable systems. Several students straightened, antennae twitching in anticipation. This was advanced material, the sort that separated theoretical competence from true mastery. Croth gestured, and a problem manifested on the blackboard. Layers of symbols folding into one another, variables shifting faster than conscious thought. A few students began calculating at once, minds interfacing directly with the equation. Others hesitated, recognizing the trap hidden within the structure. Croth allowed them a moment of struggle. Then he smiled, a subtle and unsettling curl of his mandibles. Elias Ward, he said, you will solve this. A ripple moved through the hall. Some students turned to stare openly now, their expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled disdain. Humans were known for creativity, yes, but creativity was not precision. Not here. Elias blinked once, then rose from his seat. He did not rush. He did not stall. He walked to the blackboard with the unhurried confidence of someone approaching a familiar problem, not an execution. Croth watched closely. This was the moment he had engineered. The problem was designed around axioms humans did not use, assumptions so fundamental that questioning them would seem absurd. Elias would attempt a linear solution, fail to reconcile the contradictions, and expose the weakness of human cognition for all to see. Begin, Croth said. Elias studied the board. He did not reach for the input field. He did not summon auxiliary data. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something beneath the symbols. Minutes passed. A few students shifted, irritation flickering through shared mental channels. Silence in Helior Prime was rarely tolerated for long. Finally, Elias spoke. This problem assumes the system seeks equilibrium. Croth stiffened. That is implicit. That's the problem, Elias replied mildly. You're forcing stability onto something that doesn't want it. A murmur rippled through the hall. Croth's mandibles clicked once, sharply. Solve the equation, human. Do not editorialize. Elias nodded, but instead of calculating forward, he erased a portion of the board. Gasps followed. Unauthorized modification was considered disrespectful at best. He replaced the erased symbols with simpler marks, reframing the structure entirely. Croth felt an unfamiliar sensation creep into his thorax. Irritation, Yes, but beneath it, something colder. Elias was not failing. He was dismantling the question. You see, Elias said, his voice steady, you're trying to predict an outcome. I'm trying to understand behavior. He stepped back, leaving an unfinished construct on the board, elegant, incomplete, and deeply unsettling. Croth stared at it. The solution was not there. Not yet. But for the first time in centuries, Croth realized something far more dangerous than error had entered his classroom. Possibility. Silence pressed down on the lecture hall, heavier now than before. The unfinished construct hovered on the blackboard, its symbols stripped of ornament, its logic exposed in a way that made several students recoil. They were accustomed to complete solutions, not questions disguised as answers. Instructor Croth recovered first. He stepped closer to the board, his many eyes scanning Elias Ward's alterations with quick, precise movements. The human had not violated any formal rule, yet the disruption felt profound, like a crack in a trusted foundation. You have not solved the problem, Croth said. No, Elias agreed. I've made it solvable. That earned a sharper reaction. A Varelian student emitted a low hiss of disapproval. Another, all crystalline facets and humming thought chimes, leaned back as if distance might restore certainty. Croth raised one clawed limb, and the room stilled. The parameters are complete, Croth insisted. The system trends toward equilibrium by necessity. This is not a matter of interpretation. Elias turned to face him fully. Up close, the contrast between them was stark, chitin and mandible against soft skin and bone, centuries of rigid tradition against a few decades of adaptable survival. Yet Elias did not look small. He looked attentive. Necessity depends on perspective, Elias said. From inside the system, equilibrium looks like death. Croth felt a flare of irritation. Anthropocentric metaphor is not analysis. Then let's remove the metaphor, Elias replied. He gestured to the board. Your model assumes all variables act to minimize instability. But some systems grow by amplifying it. If you treat instability as error, you'll never predict their behavior, only suppress it. A ripple of unease passed through the hall. The concept was not entirely foreign, yet no one had voiced it so plainly. Croth's species categorized instability as a transitional flaw, something to be corrected, never studied. Proceed, Croth said at last. The word carried an edge. Demonstrate your claim. Elias nodded once and turned back to the board. This time, he did not erase. He added. New symbols branched outward, forming loops instead of chains, probabilities instead of fixed outcomes. He worked quickly now, not because he was rushed, but because the shape of the idea had clarified. As he worked, he spoke, not to challenge, but to explain. Humans don't get complete data. We never have. Our models assume missing information, bias, noise. So we build systems that can survive being wrong. Croth watched, unwillingly fascinated. The equations were unorthodox, yet internally consistent. They did not seek a single solution. They mapped a range of futures, weighted by behavior rather than outcome. This is inefficient, Croth said. You are calculating far more than required. Elias smiled faintly. Only if you think the goal is to be right once. The construct on the board stabilized, not into a clean answer, but into a bounded field of probabilities. Several students gasped as the simulation projected forward, branching and collapsing, revealing patterns hidden beneath the original formulation. Croth's claws tightened. The result was accurate. Not in the way the Academy preferred, but in a way that could not be dismissed. The human had not predicted a single outcome. He had predicted the system's behavior under uncertainty. You are redefining the problem, Croth said quietly. Yes, Elias replied. Because the original definition was too small. For a long moment, Croth said nothing. His authority rested on mastery of known frameworks. Elias Ward had not challenged his knowledge directly. He had stepped around it. You were summoned to demonstrate competence, Croth said at last. Not to undermine methodology. Elias turned, meeting the instructor's gaze without defiance. I wasn't trying to undermine it. I was trying to survive it. The words landed harder than any insult. Croth realized, with a flash of cold clarity, that this was not arrogance. It was adaptation. Humans had not built their intelligence in controlled academies. They had forged it in environments that punished certainty and rewarded flexibility. Around them, the students no longer looked amused. Some leaned forward, studying the board with new interest. Others looked unsettled, as if a trusted map had begun to warp. Croth dismissed the projection with a sharp gesture. The board went blank. "This discussion is not concluded," he said. "Return to your seat." Elias did so without protest, though a quiet tension followed him like a wake. As he sat, he felt the weight of attention shift, not hostile now, but wary. Croth faced the class, his posture rigid. The lesson had deviated too far, yet he could not deny what he had witnessed. The human had not failed. Worse, he had revealed a gap in the academy's understanding. As the session ended and the hall began to empty, Croth remained still, his thoughts circling a single, unsettling realization. If Elias Ward was right, then human intelligence was not flawed. It was dangerous. The following cycle, the lecture hall filled more quickly than usual. Word traveled fast at Helior Prime, not through rumor but through data, recorded anomalies, flagged deviations, statistical curiosities that demanded attention. Elias Ward felt it the moment he entered. Conversations faltered. Eyes tracked him, not with contempt this time, but with calculation. Instructor Croth arrived precisely on schedule. His movements were as controlled as ever, yet something in his posture had changed. He did not immediately activate the Blackboard. Instead, he surveyed the room, his multifaceted gaze lingering on Elias for a measurable fraction longer than protocol required. "Yesterday," Croth began, "a methodological deviation occurred." A low hum passed through the students. Such deviations are not inherently errors. They are, however, risks. Elias sat quietly, hands folded, listening. Croth gestured, and the blackboard illuminated with the previous construct, Elias's construct, restored in full. The probabilities pulsed softly, branching and collapsing in endless variation. The instructor's claws hovered near the control field, as if unsure whether to erase it or defend it. "You claim this approach offers superior predictive power under uncertainty," Croth said. "Demonstrate it." There was no challenge in his tone this time. Only demand. Elias stood. He felt the shift again, the room leaning toward him, not away. He approached the board, pausing briefly as if to let the idea settle before touching it. "Your systems aim for certainty," he said. "Ours aim for resilience." He modified the construct with minimal input, introducing feedback loops that responded not to outcomes, but to errors themselves. The model began to adapt in real time, weighting failed predictions as heavily as successful ones. A student near the front emitted an involuntary click of surprise. "This is regression without convergence," Croth observed. "It never resolves." Elias nodded. "Because reality doesn't." The projection shifted again, now simulating environmental changes, random perturbations, incomplete data streams. Where the Academy's standard models fractured, Elias's construct bent, absorbing inconsistency without collapse. Croth felt an unfamiliar tension spread through his cognitive core. The human was not brute-forcing solutions. He was embracing uncertainty as a structural element. It was inefficient. It was inelegant. It worked. "Explain the origin of this framework," Croth said. Elias hesitated, just briefly. "We didn't design it all at once. We failed into it." That answer unsettled the room more than any equation. Failure, in most galactic cultures, was something to be eliminated. Among humans, it appeared to be instructional. "Our environments change faster than our theories," Elias continued. "So we build systems that learn while they're wrong, not after." Croth considered this. His species evolved in stable conditions, where knowledge accumulated slowly and predictably. Adaptation was measured, controlled. Humanity's path, by contrast, sounded chaotic. Dangerously so. "You are describing intelligence as a process, not a state," Croth said. "Yes," Elias replied. A moving target. The blackboard chimed softly as the model completed a long-range simulation. The predictive spread narrowed, not to a point, but to a corridor of high-probability behaviors. It was not precise. It was reliable. Several students leaned closer now, their skepticism eroding into reluctant admiration. One began overlaying the human's construct with their own traditional framework, searching for points of reconciliation. Croth dismissed the projection slowly. Your method sacrifices certainty for adaptability. Elias met his gaze. We don't sacrifice it. We postpone it. For the first time, Croth felt the ground shift beneath a belief he had never questioned. The Academy prized final answers. Humanity appeared content with provisional ones, as long as they kept working. You are summoned to be evaluated, Croth said. Instead, you are evaluating us. I didn't mean to, Elias said. But if a system can't handle being questioned, it won't survive contact with the unknown. The words echoed in the chamber. They were not an attack. They were a warning. Croth turned away, addressing the class. This session is concluded. The dismissal came early. Students filed out more slowly than usual, many casting glances back at the blackboard, as if expecting the human's construct to reappear on its own. Elias gathered his things, unsure whether he had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. As he stepped into the corridor, he heard Croth speak his name. Elias Ward. He turned. This academy was built on the assumption that intelligence converges, Croth said. You suggest it diverges. Elias considered his answer. Only when it's alive. Croth watched him go, the implications settling deep within his thoughts. If human intelligence thrived on divergence, then the Academy faced a choice it had never prepared for. Adapt. Or be left behind. The summons arrived without explanation. Elias Ward was instructed to report to the Central Forum, a chamber reserved for disciplinary review and academic arbitration. The message carried no tone, no hint of outcome. That, more than anything, unsettled him. At Helior Prime, silence often preceded correction. Instructor Croth was already there when Elias entered. He stood alone beneath the vaulted ceiling, the chamber's crystalline walls reflecting his segmented form into infinite fragments. For the first time since Elias had known him, Croth did not occupy the elevated dais of authority. He waited on the floor. You have forced a review, Croth said, without accusation. Not by violation, but by consequence. Elias inclined his head. That wasn't my intention. Intent is irrelevant, Croth replied. Impact is not. The forum activated around them, displaying fragments of Elias's work, student inquiries sparked by it, and statistical anomalies rippling through the Academy's curriculum. Enrollment in predictive systems had spiked. Error-tolerant modeling requests were flooding restricted archives. The structure of instruction itself was beginning to bend. You were invited here to learn our methods, Croth said. Instead, you revealed their limits. Elias studied the projections, seeing not triumph, but strain. Every method has limits. Humans just tend to find them the hard way. Croth turned toward him fully. That is precisely the concern. For a moment, Elias wondered if this was where it ended. Not with expulsion, but with quiet exclusion. The Academy did not destroy threats. It absorbed or isolated them. The Council debated your removal, Croth continued. Your approach destabilizes established hierarchies. It encourages uncertainty. And yet, Elias said softly, it works. Croth's mandibles flexed. Yes. The admission echoed louder than any condemnation. Elias felt the tension in his shoulders ease, though he did not relax. The Council fears what cannot be standardized, Croth said. Human cognition resists standardization. It is inconsistent, contextual, disturbingly adaptive. Elias allowed himself a faint smile. We call that thinking. Croth did not return it. We call it risk. The projections shifted, settling on a single recommendation. Not punishment. Reassignment. You will not be dismissed, Croth said. Nor will you continue as a standard student. Elias frowned. Then what? You will observe, Croth replied.
Advise.
Participate in controlled research alongside our senior theorists. Your methods will be studied, not adopted wholesale. Because you don't trust them, Elias said. Because we do, Croth corrected. And trust without understanding is reckless. Elias considered the offer. It was not equality. It was not acceptance. But it was not rejection either. It was something rarer. Engagement. I'll do it, Elias said. On one condition. Crotha's eyes narrowed. State it. You don't try to make human thinking conform, Elias said. You let it be what it is. Messy. Incomplete. Croth was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he inclined his upper body, a gesture of professional respect. Agreed. As Elias turned to leave, the weight in the chamber shifted. The academy was not transformed. Not yet. But a fault line had formed, and through it, something new was emerging. In the corridors outside, students paused as Elias passed. They did not stare now. They stepped aside. Not in fear. In recognition. Croth remained in the forum long after Elias departed, studying the residual projections of adaptive models and unresolved equations. For centuries, he had believed intelligence was a destination, a point of convergence reached by the disciplined few. Now he suspected it was a journey with no final map. And humanity, it seemed, had been walking it blindly for millennia, surviving not because they were certain, but because they were willing to be wrong and keep going. The academy would change. Slowly, reluctantly. But it would change. Because it had learned something vital. Not all intelligence seeks to dominate the unknown. Some of it learns to live with it,